Hey folks, welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you tuning in as always. Today on the show, this is a completion of a series of sorts that started back in early 2016. My guest today is Mike Bryan. Mike is a sketch writer and performer in New York City. He is 1/3 of the members of the sketch comedy group I work with, doing lights and sound, Backdoor BBQ here in the city. And he is the final member of the group to appear on my show. I have previously interviewed Paul Cohen, and I've also interviewed Chris Miliaccio, who I'm probably due to have a follow-up episode with at some point, because a lot has changed in his life since the last time we talked. So I'll try to set that up as well. But Mike is the final member of the group that I had been wanting to sit down with and have on the show, and we finally did it. And it was a pretty, and I learned, we talk a little bit about my former college town of near Towson, Maryland, because he went to college nearby as well. And we had a pretty nice chat, kind of talking about, brought back some memories of jobs I had when I was trying to make ends meet when I used to work in retail during college and then after college before I moved to New York, because Mike, and you'll hear in the conversation, had some similar job experiences. And it really made me think about where I was over 10 years ago when I was still working at that job. And I had no idea I was going to ever get out of Maryland. I had no idea I was ever going to get to do a podcast or get to interview some people that I really admire, or even get to do shows and work shows and get paid for them in the venues that I had heard about in New York, because it was just something that I aspired to, and it made me feel really glad and gave me some perspective on, even though I still am struggling and working hard to make this show happen and to make other stuff comedy related happen, it made me feel really glad that I have made some progress in professionally, if also not personally as well. So this is a nice, a really good episode. If you enjoyed this and you want to tell a friend, please feel free to do so. I would greatly appreciate it. If you wanted to leave a review and a ranking on iTunes, that kind of helps boost the numbers of the show. You can also add us to your favorite playlists on Stitcher, and you can follow me on Spotify. Little things like that are really helpful, more than you might understand. So thank you guys for doing that. And also, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Comic Will Carey. And you can check out the podcast on Patreon and some of the bonus stuff that I've started to do at patreon.com/awesomedisaster. And I appreciate you listening and checking that out. And even if you can't contribute, your listenership means the world to me, and any support or shares is greatly appreciated. So thank you guys again, and I hope you're doing well wherever you are. And let's go to my chat with Mike Bryan.
When they did those, I want to say jazzercise, but that's not it. Aerobics, that's the word. Those aerobics, like specials on TV, where they'd be like that high poppy type.
Oh yeah, like with the like neon workout clothes.
Yeah, and
like
there's like 90 people on there, and they keep dropping off and dropping off and dropping off.
Uh-huh.
Like that kind of like music, like.
The like let's get physical kind of thing. Okay.
That's where I think it would go, but again, I'm not part of the process. It's not my sketch.
Oh, because I have something, because if you look at my pedal board over there, that white pedal with the purple on it, that's a synthesizer simulator. So I can make my guitar sound. I can like do some excellent like Blade Runner-esque soundscapes with that. It's pretty cool. Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because I was just looking on the internet. I think the next show is like almost close to like the 3-year mark that we've been doing the show.
It is the exact 3 mark of the show having been done as like a pilot. So our first ever show was July 26, 2016. It was part of like the pit had pretty much opened up the pit loft, a 3rd stage. So one of the things they were doing was they were trying to get more programming. So the way they did it was through this thing called pilot season, where for it was a 15-minute block, and each team would get about 20-ish minutes to say. And that's what Chris and I did. It was like a 20-minute set. It was like a couple sketches, a blackout sketch. We did like a news with a character, just to kind of show what the show would look like, which led us to another show, which was technically our second show, but our first like name show in September that year, and that was the first one we had you and everything.
Yes, I remember that because I was doing tech for like a graduation show. It was like a packed show. I seem to remember. I think it was like maybe the first or second big thing I had teched at the pit, and I was still kind of like figuring out like Cubase and all that stuff, and it went really well. And I can't remember if I was supposed to get paid for that or not, but then you guys happened to be watching that show and are like, hey, that was some good tech.
And we were in need of a tech. We were trying to book one for a while, and everyone was like too busy or like it just no one was like committing to it. And I was like, well, if we're gonna get a tech, we want to have like a tech who commit to all the dates, and like be in the show and be part of the program with us.
Of course, yeah.
Because I've seen groups do like, oh, we just book someone and they do it, and then the next show we book someone else and they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like, I mean, to be frank, it looks like crap.
Well, yeah, there's a certain kind of quality to when, and I know that, and I feel this way just from doing theater for a long time. There's a certain quality to when like the technical side of a production is as much a part of the crew and the group as who's on stage.
It's a key part. You want the person doing tech to know your show, be familiar with it, be familiar with what you have a tendency to do. This way you can have fun and roll with things that break or things that don't go well, or like if you're doing something on stage and it's not working with the audience, you can use that as a tool to make the show better, which is, to me, that's important. It's more engaging for our audience and more fun for us, where we don't have to worry about like, well, if we miss this line, the whole cue goes to crap, and now the sketch is all off, and now everyone's annoyed, and the tech person goes, well, you didn't say the line, and they are terrible smokers, all of them apparently.
Yeah, all of them.
Based on that impression.
Yeah, they all sound like Joey's agent.
They're all
Friends.
just like, listen, I've been doing this for years.
Yeah, or especially when like you have a very tech and cue heavy sketch, Space Force sketch to open the show, and then the software just breaks
and everything just doesn't work.
Yeah. The next time that happens, I'm just gonna read from the script.
Yeah, I think at that point we just double down.
Yeah, and then you have to rebuild the show that you spent quite a while building over the previous week, and you have to rebuild it while the show's going on.
Live.
Yeah,
piece by piece.
Yeah, but I mean, that is just, those are the two things I like most about the entertainment business. The way on the sliver that we're in it. I like that we met through that old story of like, oh, I was doing a thing, and then someone else saw me do the thing, and then they're like, hey, you should come do the thing with us, and then all right, we'll go do the thing, and then also that like the possibility that it could all fall apart at any second. I kind of like that.
Things interesting, and yeah, I mean, I feel like personally, you know, when I was a student, I was always like, well, how do I start doing stuff? How do I start doing stuff? And it actually came down to just being present and being around. You could be super talented. You could be the best writer. You can have the best ideas. But it means nothing if you're not present and you're not engaged. That's how we got our pilot season gig. I had to stalk them because we were just two students who were on a list with people who've been doing shows forever, to a point where I just went to every pilot season show and be like, hey, great show, that was really interesting. Hey, that was a great show, that was really interesting. Finally, they were like, you come to a lot of these. Like, do you write? Do you perform? Are you interested? And I was like, well, as a matter of fact, we have an application submitted. You know, we'd love to do a show soon. But yeah, I mean, it's a great program. We'd really love to do it. A week later, email, here's, what slot do you want? It was just being there, filling out the form was, you need to do that, which was great.
Oh yeah.
But the fact that we just showed presence and engagement was actually what kind of got this thing rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And then
that's sort of like stick, so that way you're in the forefront of like people's minds when they're like making decisions.
Yeah.
I think the on the stand-up comedy side they call that being a good hang.
being a good hang.
Yeah, that's how I feel like I strive to do both of those things. And I think they're good life qualities also, is that you want to be enjoyable to be around, and then you want to be funny, and then you want to have like you want to be able to be like pleasant to work with,
Yeah, I mean, being a good person to work with and talk to is absolutely key. No one likes working with difficult people.
Mm-hmm.
They are just the worst in the world. You could be the most talented person. If you are a pain, I will just say, I'm good. No, thank you. You're wonderful, but I will not deal with you, especially for our show where it's 8 weeks of dealing with people. You have to be cool with them, and they have to be like someone you're cool with seeing once a week for 8 weeks.
Yeah, it's sort of like being in bands. If you're gonna spend a lot of time with people, it's hopefully you like them. Compared to like comedians, which is part of why I think that comedians there'll never be like a comedy union outside of like the being actors unions, because comedians all view themselves as like lone wolf, Clint Eastwood, rolling into town, slinging the jokes, and then leaving town.
I am very enamored by the idea of a comedian union and what that meeting would look like, though.
I know, right? And did you know Chris before you guys were a sketch team, or did you like meet later?
We met Chris, Paul, and I all met taking classes at the Pit.
Mm-hmm.
We took level 2 sketch together at the Pit, then did a quick show with a group that didn't quite hang together.
Mm-hmm.
And then that fall, a couple things happened, so we weren't really able to kind of keep intact.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chris and I took level 3 sketch the January of 2016 together. And after that class wrapped up, pretty much it wasn't like it is today where you have house teams and all these different programs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They were very much just like, okay, cool, you finished. Well, here's the link if you ever want to do a show. Good luck.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask you about your perception on that, because there was a time in my life, even though I went to college for theater, I thought everyone teaching classes on the arts in New York was trying to scam you. I've evolved on that over the past almost decade I've been here, but I feel like now more so than like maybe 10 years ago, and I think it's partly due to places like UCB and the Pit, where comedy almost feels like a legitimate career path the way other things do, because there's like a structure to it. I mean, there's no guarantee of a job at the end of it, but I've also felt that there's no guarantee of any job when you finish school.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it has, even at the time I've been there's definitely been more structure and I guess curation around the shows and the people, being part of the community, starting with having a house team program as like, you're almost like your training ground of like, here's how you do shows, here's how you run tech, things that, I know I had to kind of learn on the fly.
Right.
I never knew about tech rehearsals or like getting directors or even what
upstage,
the space,
downstage, that kind of stuff.
I think I got it now, but even up until a few months ago, I actually had to just ask someone. I'm like, how do I remember which one's up and down? Because as a finance person, I'd never learned it. But nowadays, I think when you have an idea, you'll be challenged a little bit more to kind of work through it. They're not just going to say, here's your slot, have fun. Unless you're saying, hey, I want to just do this fun show super late on like a random night, in which case, I think there's more flexibility there. But if you're saying, I want to do a show every other month, you're going to get the questions, what is the show? how do you want to build it? Who's your audience? What's kind of what's the attraction for it? And I think that's having that consistency and that kind of accountability forces folks to work on all those kind of tools, finding your voice, finding your style. And to me, that's what's yielding a lot more of the, oh, this person got this gig, this person got this gig, because they were forced to kind of, or not forced, but challenged to
Right.
create a show in their own way and in their own style and in their own image. And even the pit alone has seen a couple folks, even this year, a couple house team alumni made the late night NBC late night writers program, things like that. And I think that's a byproduct of, one, their hard work and talent, but two, not just being given stuff, but having kind of that challenging mindset of what is your show, what is your voice. I know it's something I'm working on, of trying to figure out, what is my show's, my non-sketch show, what does that look like, things like that. It's always It's very challenging and interesting.
Yeah. Curation is something I think about a lot, because now that the way the media landscape has shifted, there are fewer gatekeepers. There's more like but the like tastemaker curation role is, I think, becoming more prominent again, and it's almost like a different kind of gatekeeper attitude. But you need, and this is the analogy I'll make, and it's something that I was talking about with Paul when he did the show. So like, how Paul and I like used to find out like what our new favorite band would be is we would buy a CD, and then we would look at the bands that band thanked, and then we'd go check out those bands, and then we'd see what bands they thanked, and then just keep going and going, and
interesting,
and to find more stuff. But that's how you kind of build your reputation as far as being the place that generates that quality stuff. Like the Comedy Cellar, is always going to have a killer lineup, even if you don't know everyone on the lineup.
Yeah. And that's one thing for our show that we're very keen on nowadays. I think when we first started, there were sketch shows, but they were kind of few and far between, or they weren't as, available. It was a lot of improv and a lot of variety shows. Mm-hmm. So we were able to get some folks in the door just by being a sketch show that students would come to see. Now that you have all these different shows and all these different programs and, these super free shows and things like that, that's where those audiences are going. So, what we're focused on is saying, all right, well, we have guests come in and perform with us, which is great, and that'll get a different audience through the door. Yeah. But our goal is we want the show to be really good. We want them to come the first time because their friends in it, and that's really great. But we want them to keep coming back because they really liked the show itself and the quality of the show, so that they say, well, I really like that group, so next time they come with the person that was in it with us, and trying to build out that network that way as well, which has been really fun to kind of see. I know even our last show, we had people who were at our March show come to our May show just with their friends and things like that, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's what you want. That's what you want. And that last show was amazing.
It was a really fun one, so we're hoping to kind of do that again. And it's very refreshing for me as well, because you're driving towards a really, really high quality show. And for me, I'd rather be part of a high quality show or a high quality product than to be part of, an okay show where it's all about me all the time. That's why I like doing shows like Old School Sketch Show, for example, is they bring 8 people in, and you got 8 people giving their hardest, and maybe you get one thing in, and maybe you get like one lead role. But that show, each time I've been in it, has been a high quality, fun show to be a part of, where you're like, I just want people to see this.
Yeah. I know exactly how you feel about that. Yeah, like it's definitely like it for me. It would be the difference between me inviting you to come to like see a bringer show I'm doing,
right,
where there's like a cover and a drink minimum, and I'm gonna do like a killer 7 minutes, but then you're also going to have to sit through all these other comics who this is maybe their first time doing it.
Yep.
I wouldn't do that to you.
Thank you.
What I would do is if I was going to say I'm going to do 20 minutes,
Yep.
or I'm going to run my solo show, that I would want you to be at, like
Right.
that kind of a thing. You have more of an investment in it.
Yeah, you're putting more time and energy and kind of passion into what you're creating, which has been, that was kind of the big switch for us for this year, and why the shows looked a little bit different. Is we made a process out of it, and we kind of committed more on ourselves and to what we were doing, and
Oh, you're fine.
I just kicked something.
Yeah, no, these are just the little things about podcasting that I like.
I move around a lot. I'm very active.
Well, when Momo Pujé did the show, he's a really funny comedy buddy of mine. My Chelsea, this was at my old apartment. Chelsea had gotten tie delivered, so I had to answer the door in the middle of the podcast. So this is the kind of what I love about this medium. That it's sort of it's loose. If we were on radio, it would be a very different vibe.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of want to trace where you're at now and how we got there, because you're from the New York area, right?
I'm from the New York area. I grew up on Long Island.
Mm-hmm. What part?
Stony. Well, it's a town called Setauket. It is eastern Long Island. About call it 2 hours outside of Manhattan.
Okay.
So not Montauk far, but kind of like in the center part of Long Island on the North Shore.
Okay, I'm kind of have a general idea of what that area is like. The couple of times that I've been out to, I haven't made it out to Montauk yet, but the couple of times I've been out near like Fire Island and stuff like that, I always have this there's a part of Long Island that feels sort of like it's in a time warp. Like it feels like very quaint and small townish.
Oh yeah, no, that is many Long Island shore towns, whether it's on the North Shore or the South Shore. All those towns, they have like there's so many main streets, and it's all just mom and pop shops and things like that, and it's right by the water. Yeah, that is a very Long Island thing, especially in the eastern county, Suffolk County. You'll see that a lot. That's north of where I live. It's just like that too. There's a town called Port Jefferson where there's a ferry and you see the Long Island Sound, and it's very quaint, and there is a McDonald's, but there's really no other chain restaurants beyond that. It's all just like small owned shops.
Yeah. It amazes me that places like that exist so close to this concrete monstrosity that is New York City.
Oh yeah, it's a big switch, especially moving to the city for the first time. It's a little bit of an adjustment where everything seems so just intense and busy and active all the time. And I realize it more now when I go back home and I could just sit like at the door and there's nothing happening. Literally nothing. It's just birds. I woke up yesterday to just the sound of birds. That was it.
That sounds kind of nice. I would much prefer that, even though I grew up on the water also. So I still have like a little bit of a every time I go to visit my parents, I always get a little like, oh no, what if they don't let me leave? So is that what your hometown was like? That sort of like quaint small town kind of
it's
experience?
a very, I mean, I was virtually in the middle of like the main roads with like, the main highways and interstates and stuff like that. So it was a little bit more active, but my neighborhood itself was very quiet and, quiet little community.
Sure. And what was your house like growing up? What did your parents do?
So I grew up in a home with one of six kids. So that's a little bit of a different experience.
And where were you in the order?
I was number 2, and then the oldest son. So I had 4 little brothers, 1 older sister.
And how was that?
There was always chaos and something happening. just always someone yelling, someone running around. So I developed very much a sense of like being able to tune out chaos around me at a very young age. Otherwise, you just get driven crazy. So that has prepared me quite well for city life. More than I thought. But I'll be like sitting at a parking lot talking to someone, and they'll be like, "Can you believe that they're just screaming over there?" Didn't even realize.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything. It's just like, it's like, oh, Mike, the bench you're sitting on is on fire. It's like, oh, is it? Oh, like I guess I'll get up.
Oh, goddamn.
This is something I want to ask a follow-up question today.
Yeah.
Do you think would you describe yourself as introverted or extroverted? Introverted. Now,
very much so.
Okay, because now I'd always thought, because I grew up an only child in a really small town, so I'd always thought that if I had like a sibling, that I might be a little bit more extroverted. But you're saying that's not the case.
Not for me, at least. I mean, I have other siblings that are wildly extroverted. I'm naturally introverted. So I need to. It takes lots of time and energy, especially when I go out to like work or go out to a show or something.
Yeah.
To be talking and engaging and working with people. In the back of my mind, I'm just like, I want to go home right now and just like.
Oh, dude, I feel the same way.
Do nothing. But I've gotten much better over the years, especially when I was like just out of college. It was very, very hard for me to just like be outward and engaging. And I've just through repetition have kind of just pushed myself to be a little bit better each time and like strike up more conversations, but naturally.
Sure.
I'm like, want nothing to do with this.
I know, it's really hard for me too, and I went to school for theater, so it's like a lot of loud.
Yeah.
And it's just I'm not naturally inclined that way. That's why like the TA for my comedy class when I was in college told me I have a mind for stand up and not for improv.
Yeah, I'm not very. I do improv out of like practice, but I like the sketch because I like to sit and think through it. And I know exactly when I need to put in the energy, whereas in improv, it could be at any given moment to be like, oh, you need to be the loud, crazy one now.
Right.
Where I don't like that. I like to be like, all right, this is my role. This is when I'm going to do it. This is when I need to come in. And I can like mentally prepare for that. Like, okay, here I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Here's my
sketch. Right before you have to be Brian Wilson, Texas Law Hawk.
Before I have to be Brian Wilson, Texas Law Hawk, I know. Big breath in, get ready to just be loud and do lots of fake cocaine.
He has so many commercials. I don't know if you know.
There's another guy. I forgot his name, but
oh no, the Hammer.
The Hammer.
Oh,
yes.
I wanted to talk to you about the Hammer.
I think you sent me the Hammer.
Yes, I did. I did send you the Hammer. Yeah, yeah. I was just sort of like, and if you don't know what we're talking about, Google either. The Hammer was featured on John Oliver recently on Last Week Tonight.
That's what it was. Correct. Yes.
And then go on YouTube and Google Brian Wilson, Texas Law Hawk. I don't know why. I don't know what the legal scene is like in the Texas area, but apparently you have to stand out because Brian Wilson does these ridiculously over-the-top hilarious commercials where he calls himself the Texas Law Hawk, and I don't know if I'd hire him as my lawyer, but I know his name now.
I mean, it's otherworldly because I want to know who watches that commercial and says, that's my guy. He drove a motorcycle or a dirt bike, I should say. He drove a dirt bike through a plated glass window. He also had he did a fake sobriety test using a cardboard box, which was actually, I think, a child with a roll of paper just pushing through the results.
Yeah, I think so.
And then he like karate kicked the box, and it revealed that it was a child. And he was like, "That's why you don't take fake sobriety tests," or whatever it was. It was something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, and then for the 4th of July one, he put firecrackers on a sombrero and lit them off. And
yes,
almost
on his head.
Blew his head off.
Like he didn't see what happened to Jason Pierre-Paul, and he's like, you know what? Let me just throw this on my noggin and see what happens.
There's got to be a Brian Wilson like personal injury attorney, like a version, like a personal injury attorney who's just like we're gonna sue the fireworks company.
Yeah, I feel like it's just absolutely cyclical, and then out of left field, or I don't know the order. I have my personal opinion on it, but then out of left field, this guy, the Hammer, comes in with virtually the same exact commercials, just with a hammer instead of like an eagle.
Yeah, personally, I think Eagle's better.
Oh yeah, I think the Hammer's a hack. You heard that hot take, I know. But all of a sudden this guy is like, wait a second, this Brian Wilson guy has all these commercials where he beats the crap out of a filing cabinet and then says, go paperless.
Right.
And then he comes in and pays probably thousands of dollars in special effects to swing a hammer and have a truck explode on him, around him.
Yeah.
Like the frickin' scene from Game of Thrones where the dragon burns the Night King and he just comes out unscathed.
Right.
That's what this guy did, but with like a truck.
Yeah, it's a special kind of thing. So one of six. So you're trying to carve out your own little like bit of quiet in just a really loud house.
Yeah, I mean, I went away to high school, so it was more when I was home. And even then, I just know how to just mentally kind of shut it down and be like, all right, y'all just do your thing. You can beat each other up all you'd like.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, to me, it's like almost second nature at this point where I don't really get fazed by it as much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that sort of New York kind of thing. And what did your folks do for?
My mom is a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Now she teaches nurses, and my dad owned his own company, or still owns his own company, installing. I'm trying to put it in layman's terms. So if you go to a warehouse,
Okay.
right? You go to a warehouse and you see all these different things in the warehouse, whether it's like conveyors or if it's elevators or like racks or all these tall mezzanines.
Okay.
He runs a company that installs / sells those.
Okay, that makes sense. So I used to work at Target.
Yep.
So I have this huge empty back room.
Yep.
And I gotta get a bunch of shelves to put barbecue grills on.
Yep.
And I need a bunch of shelves with tiny little cardboard things to put random shit in.
Yep.
He installs all that stuff.
He would do that stuff among many other things. So my childhood job was going to random warehouses in the middle of God knows where to help install those things.
In just like Barron Business Park.
Yeah.
Off of the LIRR.
I wouldn't even give the credit of it being off the LIRR many a times. Many a times it was like in some random driving distance area. 2.5 hours away from my house.
Oh, wow.
I once built a temple, like a Jewish temple.
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, the outside infrastructure of it in during the summer outdoors. That was not fun.
You built a temple out. You built a Jewish temple outside in the summer.
In the summer,
I feel
everything was boiling hot to the touch because it was all this heavy steel infrastructure, and it was just wickedly hot.
There's got to be some parallel with that in Jewish history somewhere.
Right, I know, and I as a quote unquote Catholic, I didn't know if it was okay that I was doing it or not, but it's what my job was.
I think they would understand capitalism.
Yeah,
to a certain degree, it's like, yeah, you do what you got to do.
Capitalism, but Judaism. We gave them a great rate.
So that was your job like in high school?
That was primarily my job in high school and college. My other job in college, at times, I stopped installing stuff in warehouses, and I worked in a warehouse in which I installed stuff.
That's good.
So it was one of like the things we installed all the stuff, and then one summer my dad was like, "You got to find a different job." I was like, "Fine," and they connected me with this eyeglass warehouse distributor, where I worked in a warehouse that would just ship out eyeglasses all day, or like salesman products for like eyeglasses, so like giant cutouts of like someone with glasses and their thumb up.
Oh, really?
I would pack those up and ship them off to like different eyeglass, like a Pearl Vision or something, which was very interesting.
Yeah. So this is almost like logistics. I kind of
100%.
I kind of understand this world a little bit, and it gives me these kind of, because you hear all these reports about what it's like to work at Amazon, and there's very much an alternate reality where I am still in Target running, like checking stuff in the back and then it gives me shivers.
It was one of the most wildest eye-opening jobs I had. It was very interesting because as someone who is like very kind of like driven, where I'm like, I gotta get this done as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, things like that. There's a game in these places.
Oh, 100%.
Where it's, if I go too fast, I'm going to run out of work. So I need to go fast enough to keep my work available and not run out of stuff to do. And they say, okay, you can get let off early. And going slow enough where you keep your workload, you keep getting paid.
I know this game 100%.
Blew my mind.
It is a fine balance. You don't want to go too fast that they start giving you more to do, and you don't want to go too slow that you get fired.
Or even like, because you have orders. So once you run out of orders, there's nothing else to do. So if you finish the orders in 4 hours, you get paid for 4 hours.
Right.
And I was like going, as like I was whatever, like 20-ish at the time, 19, 20 years old at the time. I was always just like, let's get as many done as possible, as quickly as possible, to a point where it bit me in the ass. And one day they were just like, you don't need to come in today.
Whoa.
I was like, what? It's like, yeah, we got nothing else to do. You can come in next week.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I learned my lesson to go very slow and
space it out.
Mess around, the true American dreamer.
Just
like, don't try too hard.
Yeah, exactly. Just coast on mediocrity.
Coast on mediocrity.
There's a lot.
So if you ever wonder why your Prime package doesn't get there on time, it's probably someone being like, but I want to get paid tomorrow, so let me just pump the brakes real quick.
Oh my god, yeah. Like some of the reports I read about like working at Amazon is just I hope that they can get out at some point. So did you ever have a moment where you're like, I need to get a job with a desk and a computer?
Well, yeah, I think that was my whole childhood, because I never enjoyed doing any of these jobs.
Sure.
It was never fun. So going to school, I was studying at the time to get a job with a desk and a computer.
And where did you go to college?
I went to a school called Loyola, Maryland in Baltimore.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked. I feel like we've talked about this.
Marylander, because you were in the Towson area, right?
Yeah,
right down the street.
You're right down the street.
Right down the road. Been to Towson a couple times. My favorite wing place was in Towson.
Oh, CVP's?
What was it called?
That was a really good wing spot. They also had, I think, the classic Cluck U chicken was there.
It was a place where it had really good wings, but there was a different food name in the name.
I can't. If I knew the ad,
it's gonna drive me nuts. It was right by the university.
Oh, it was right. Okay, I know. Then I know where it is. I just can't think of what it's called.
I'm gonna have to look. This is gonna drive me nuts.
Okay, we can keep talking while you look it up.
I'll keep chatting.
So you're familiar with that, with the Record Theater and the Towson Town Center Mall.
I went to a bunch of concerts at the Record Theater before it shut down.
Oh, so did I. I was so sad to hear when it closed down. Who did you see there?
So my favorite band, even today, was this band called Ballyhoo, also based out of Maryland. They are from Aberdeen.
Yes.
They're based out of Aberdeen. So one of my friends in college got me hooked onto them, and then I was like, oh, I like this, and a couple of my buddies liked it too. And because they're from Maryland, every show they went to in Maryland was just absolutely insane. They always had this annual Halloween show in Baltimore at usually at Soundstage. They would have it.
Yeah.
I'm trying. What's the one across the street from Soundstage? It was
Ram's Head?
Ram's Head. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it was. So,
I saw one of the most fun shows I've ever been to at Ram's Head. I want to talk about the Wrecker first because that place was my old band in college. We played a show there, and it was like the biggest deal. I got to feel like a rock star being on that stage.
How big is that theater? Because if I always lost, like it was always first. I was never sober going there.
Sure.
So I always tried to gauge how big it was.
I would say if the show is sold out, and if anyone from the Towson, Maryland area is listening to this, please message me at Comic Will Carry and tell me I'm wrong. But I feel like it would fit like 700 people if it was completely packed out.
Feels about right.
Because who did I see there? I saw because that was my first time seeing a show in a club. The only other concert I'd been to was at an arena, or like a punk show in like in a rec center. So I saw Shinedown there a couple times. I saw this Beatles tribute band called the Mahoney Brothers twice. I saw the band Mest, and I saw the band, and then one of my favorite bands, Alistair, opened for them. Tons of they always had like a really interesting lineup. Catch 22. I saw there, but the most fun show I ever went to in the Baltimore area was at Ram's Head. It was Real Big Fish and Less Than Jake.
Okay,
were headlining, so a ska show, already going to be a fun time.
Yep.
And then the band Against All Authority, and then Streetlight Manifesto, which is the band that someone from Catch 22 formed.
Yes.
And when they
used like half the songs.
Yeah, Streetlight Manifesto played Catch 22's like best album, like they re-recorded it as Streetlight Manifesto, and the place went fucking bananas.
So were folks happy about that? I thought it was very bizarre, because I was one of my friends. I think I was like a freshman in college or something, and we were just talking about music and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, you gotta listen to this band Streetlight Manifesto." And at the time, I was like, "Okay, I haven't heard of it," and I but I knew Catch 22 from I listened to them a little bit in high school, and I listened to the album and I was like, these songs sound familiar, and then they started going through. I was like, this is Catch 22.
Yeah, well, at that particular show, everyone was very happy and very excited.
Interesting.
And the crowd, I think, was much more into it than the crowd was when I went and saw Catch 22 at the Record, if I can be perfectly honest. My memory of those two specific shows. When they played that song, when the cover me up, in my death.
Yep.
Rams, everyone started chanting along with Streetlight. It was bonkers. I feel like the main guy who was in Catch 22 left and formed Streetlight. He was like the creative core.
Gotcha.
And I think that's why everyone was like psyched for Streetlight Manifesto. I saw Motion City soundtrack of like the 6 times that I've seen them. One of them was at the Wrecker. That was a great show.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Well, they're touring next year.
Well, I'm in the Wrecker Theater.
Oh yeah. Yes, the Wrecker Theater. Yeah, I think it's like a nightclub now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like I don't even know if they might have DJ sets or something. It bums me out.
It's always interesting to see like old places where you used to go get refurbished as like a different venue.
Yeah.
There was a bar in Baltimore, the diviest of dive bars, like real disgusting bar where just a lot of very questionable things happened. And they turned it into like this nice family friendly pub. And I think I went there maybe a year ago at this point, where we kind of walked in just to check it out. And it was just like people like playing like different games and like hanging out and just like chatting casually like on these like little corners and stuff. And we're just thinking, oh, the amount of things that we saw happen on those corners.
Oh my God.
It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't know if there's enough soap to scrub it out.
Yeah. I think about that with CBGBs a lot. I never got to see CBGBs, but now it sells. It's a John Varvatos store.
Oh,
Yeah, like very like the kind of clothes that I couldn't even pretend fit me. Like and to just think that it used to be like this the amount of cocaine that was snorted off of surfaces in that venue, just and how gross the bathrooms used to be, just from stories I've heard in documentaries. But I feel like that a lot in New York, especially. I feel like, I've been here almost 9 years now, and there's so many places, and so many places I used to do comedy that
Yeah.
are not, either don't do comedy anymore, or closed and or something else. I sort of feel like almost like a ghost from like the 1800s who's just like wandering through the city. It's just like, this isn't what that used to be at all.
Oh my God, that also is a very intriguing idea.
Yeah.
What do they think of?
I think we've got a couple sketch ideas coming out of this
I know.
conversation.
I'm going to listen back to this.
Excellent.
1800s ghosts touring through New York City. This gig gets super dark real quick.
Yeah, I feel like there's it could be oddly poetic and hilarious at the same time. Did you find the name of that
I
wing
think
place?
it was Bateman's.
Yes. I remember
I don't know where
Bateman's.
I don't remember where. I don't know where I got the idea that it had something in.
Did you ever make it out to Timonium? Because they're a place I used to do comedy at was called High Tops Backstage Bar and Grill. The show isn't there anymore, but it was a place that catered a lot of the big concerts at Meriwether Post Pavilion.
Oh, I have been to Timonium. I don't know if that rings a bell. We used to have a graduate campus in Timonium, so anytime I was there, it was usually for like some event of some sort, some student thing that they were doing.
Sure. And you went to school for accounting.
For accounting / math and information systems.
Now, is that something that you were naturally geared towards, or is that more of the job with a desk and a computer?
I, at the time, and still in part, am very track driven, where it's like, all right, well, what has the best linear track and the easiest, most comprehensible track?
Yeah.
And accounting, as much as it's difficult, and I've found nowadays I found a way to kind of make it a little bit more engaging and useful.
Mm-hmm.
It has a very easy track to follow, because you start, then you find a job in a company, you find an internship. The internship leads into a job 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So, step one, then you become a staff for 2 years. Then you become a senior for 2 to 3 years. Then you become a manager for 2 to 3 years. Then you become a senior manager for 2 to 3 years.
Uh-huh.
At all these firms. Like, that's just how it works. There's
Yeah.
no, well, I want to switch to this department, or I want to go to this. There's no bouncing. Like, you can bounce around companies and things like that. But
Sure.
even then, you go to a different company and you're like, an accounting staff, and then you go to a senior of some sort. Like, it still has that, like, step by step by step by step.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's easy to kind of see what you're heading towards, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
So it's easy to make like good decisions off of it, because if you look at the person one level above you and you say, that looks terrible, then you know it's time to go, which is what I did last December-ish. I switched I used to do like audits, like company audits, where I go and check their work, make sure they're not lying to the public. You're welcome, public. Now I do like consulting, which is much more fun, because you're actually like working with people and companies and all these different businesses on like helping them do stuff. So it's taking what I already know and actually using it for a little bit of a better purpose. By no means is it a noble cause, because at the end of the day, I'm helping businesses do business stuff. Not saving any lives. But that was just a byproduct of me knowing I didn't want to be an audit senior manager. Nothing wrong with it, but I knew
that wasn't your jam.
I knew at some point I was like, this isn't for me. I don't particularly think it's the right job for me or anything like that. So that's what keeps me towards accounting, which is interesting for the comedy world because it's not the same.
Yeah, because comedy has no tracks. It just has It has a lot of people desperately trying to figure stuff out.
It's just there's so many avenues, and even then, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is create an avenue that's not there.
Yeah,
you have to create your own path, which is
and then
very wild.
And then every couple of years, the path changes,
and then they shift the path, and they're like, actually, by the way, this whole thing you've been doing doesn't work anymore. So you need to restructure and like try something new and redo the way you do things.
Yeah. My comedy career a lot of times feels like, in cartoons where someone will walk on air and then they won't fall until they look down.
Yep.
A lot of times I'm just like not looking. I've been trying not to look down.
Just keep going. And all of a sudden, at some point, you just have a show where it just explodes. And you're like, oh, crap. We need to kind of get back to the drawing board on how to do this thing because this isn't working.
Yeah. So how does it seem? So how does a pragmatist like you find the comedy world? Was comedy always like a thing you were into?
Nope.
No. So this
not at all.
So what were you into when you were in high school, and then how did you find the comedy? Well, and then I'll say sketch specifically.
Yeah. So in high school, I was very much a bookworm student type. I still like learning. I'm I like learning, taking in information, mainly because I like to teach and present information. I just kind of like that sharing of knowledge and sharing of skills and sharing of ideas and things like that. And I try and use that in everything I do. That's more of like my baseline of everything. In high school, it was through just learning stuff and taking tests, and that was kind of it. And I watched shows and all that fun stuff, played sports.
Okay.
But the comedy thing came through even after college. So the whole story behind that is I got my degree, all that fun stuff, started studying for my CPA exams, which is kind of the next thing you need to do. You got to get your license in order to really be able to do this whole accounting thing full time.
Right.
Which is virtually another full-time job. It's studying 8 to 10 hours a day for these 4 different exams throughout the whole summer. So you need something to break things up.
Right.
Came across a video of Jimmy Fallon doing a monologue, and it was like the perfect length to break up a module. So you do a 2-hour module, and then you could watch 1 or 2 6-minute videos. Sure. And I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And then he also was hosting SNL at some point, or I somehow then found this show called SNL. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard some people talk about it on the interwebs.
At the time, I didn't understand it because I was I thought Alec Baldwin was part of this. Turns out he was this host thing that they came up with, and there was this rotating cast. Totally didn't understand the show up until a couple months into watching it, and I finally started to pick up on it, where I was like, oh, okay, so you have these cast people, and then they bring someone in. This is 2 years out of college that I'm finally picking up on this.
And did you know that was called sketch comedy?
Nope.
No, you just thought it was a variety show.
I was just I probably used the term skits, which would make everyone shudder right now. I know I'm being damned I'm just being damned right now.
Sure.
But anyway, yeah, I was this seems really interesting and fun, and then just Googling around of being how does this happen? How do people end up on this show? And it just shot me through all these different things of classes, UCB, things like that. And I was like, you know what? This seems kind of cool. I don't know if I'm on the performing thing because I've never performed a day in my life, so I'm not going to do improv. But they had these sketch classes at UCB that I was thinking about taking. If you're someone in the New York area who tries to take classes at UCB, they fill up in 10 seconds.
basically.
But all that searching around spit out a book called Late Night late Late Night TV Shows or something like that by Joe Toplin.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that seems cool because I liked all those monologues. So I wonder, how do people do that?
Yeah.
It was really out of curiosity more than anything. It seemed like a fun side thing, just to at least like see how it works.
Sure.
Pulled open the book, and within the book, he mentioned the People's Improv Theater, the Pit, and how he taught there. So that's where it got me to the Pit, where I kind of like was like, well, what do they do? And they had these classes, and they didn't fill up in 30 seconds, and they had like options, and you can kind of pick the class you wanted that fit the best for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was in the fall of 2014, I think it was, where I was like, you know what? Let me see how this goes. I signed up for the class. I finished my CPA's exams at the time, so I needed something that wasn't work.
Sure.
To do.
Definitely.
So I was like, evenings on like a Wednesday, like doesn't seem like a bad gig.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give it a whirl and see how it all goes. And took my first class and really, really enjoyed it, and kind of just stuck with it ever since, And I think each time I wasn't doing it, I kind of was like, I should take another class or something. This would be fun. And yeah, before I knew it, I was through the program, and then I had to figure out this whole show thing, and then we started doing a show, and now we're at almost 3 years into doing that.
Yeah. And it's been really cool for me, man, to see you and Chris and Paul's growth as writers and as performers, because sketch writing is, I've been fortunate enough because of you guys to dip my toes into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But like stand up and joke writing had been like the main thing for me. For me. So being able to like work on the show with you and then see you guys like grow creatively has been really exciting.
It's been a really fun 3 years. I think we've grown doing promotion for this upcoming show. I've done a lot of watching old videos. Like I had to watch all the videos from like our first show 3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And just being like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like we were okay writers at that point, and we had enough to like kind of keep it going. But I think what we did well, and like we continue to, we're very cognizant of where we're at, and that allows us to grow, I think, and we're very honest with ourselves. Sometimes I'm too honest with everybody, but we're honest with ourselves, and we hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what was fun was to kind of like know that, all right, in order to kind of keep this thing sustainable, we can probably write about 25 minutes of material. So let's fill in with guests and like someone doing a 10-minute set in the middle of the show or something like that to kind of keep it broken up. And that gave us kind of space to focus on the couple of things that we were working on.
Yeah.
Which was really, really fun. And then we got to really nail down like what works with this. How do we fix the sketch? How do we make it a little bit better? And then we put it up, and we just did show after show after show after show, get the repetition in, and see what worked and what didn't.
Yeah.
And kind of just learn trial by fire. So at some point, we kind of started having this like this array of material to reference back to be like, this worked, this didn't. Why did it work? Why did it work? And use that to kind of keep ourselves better and better and better, and then bring people in the room that help elevate us as well.
Totally.
Which has been really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's good that there's this avenue that you're able to highlight other people, because I think that's an important part of it also. One more question I have about sketch writing, and then I'll get you out here. What are some of like the base? What's sort of like the basic core of how you write a sketch? Is there like a general things you're always trying to hit when you approach a sketch? What's the process that you use?
I think for us, I wouldn't say there's a general avenue we're trying to hit. I think once we have the idea, it's fitting the framework around like what framing will give this idea the most kind of legs and the most energy.
Yeah.
Is it best as a blackout sketch? Is it a musical sketch? Is it a gamey sketch? Is it a game show sketch? And then once you have that like framing, then you go, okay, well, if it's going to be a game show sketch, let's get the characters out super early. Let's play the game once, and then let's, after the second or third time, let's find ways to rest it a little bit. If it's a musical sketch, how do we keep the music short enough and high energy enough to be entertaining, but not long enough where you start running out of, like, you lose your tempo or you lose against the track or something like that.
Sure.
For me, when I'm creating ideas, it's a mixture of things. Sometimes it's just literally listing out random occupations. One thing I've been doing a lot lately that has been kind of helping me a lot is listing out historical events. Just things everyone knows about. Because a lot of a lot of good sketches come from familiarity with the audience, where it's like, I understand what they're doing, so that when you present what you're twisting about it, it's super easy to understand.
Yeah.
So I'll take like well-known historical events, and then just like change one thing. I recently wrote a sketch for Old School that went pretty well. It was the fall of the Berlin Wall, or like the ceremony to take down the Berlin Wall.
Right.
And there was one person who did not want to take it down because they had a crazy X on the other side. So we just had this scene with the Berlin Wall up. The stakes are like, we need to take the Berlin Wall down because it's the Berlin Wall that has separated the country for 30 years.
Sure.
And it's this crazy X on the other side being like, I will never forget you. That's been my latest kick. But a lot of times I came up with, you come up with a character that you want to do. Just like, oh, I've been wearing this hat lately. Or you see this YouTube video like Brian Wilson. And you're just like,
I have to make that something.
What do I do with that? Like that one with Brian Wilson, the first one was just like, we saw it. And we saw Brian Wilson. And it's just like, how do we get Brian Wilson in the right place? And I was like, well, what about an award show that celebrates all these crappy local TV commercials?
Yeah.
And
that's a good sketch. I like that.
It was just like
one a lot.
A lot of it's just like you see something and then you're like, all right, I had this idea, but how do I put the box around it? And once we had that, it was just like, cool. Everyone just Googled the living hell out of their favorite ridiculously terrible commercials.
Sure.
We did an in memoriam song break where they sang 1-877 cars for kids. It was like, it was great. So once you create that world inspired off of this little idea, it also gives the team a lot of room to play with and have fun, which I think that's the key to a good sketch, is when everyone is really excited about it and their role in it.
Absolutely. And is At the Moment going to come back?
We'll see. I'm not sure. Right now, my focus is on Backdoor BBQ.
Backdoor and Old School.
And probably will be brought back to Old School at some point. If they're listening, I'm available. I'm here. But yeah, I think right now the focus on Backdoor. The fall especially gets a little bit tight and intense, just because we do a show in July and then you have to go right back in early September. Then you get ready for Sketchfest and then it's December.
Yes.
The fall is much more hectic than the spring. But it'd be interesting to kind of re-explore what works about talk shows. I think talk shows are a little tricky right now.
Because there's a lot of them.
Everyone's got one, and they're all kind of the same. So I think the exploration is more what would be different about a talk show.
Yeah, that's definitely it, because like the political thing is being done by a lot of different people from a lot of different perspectives, which I think is good. I'm just not very good at it.
It's good, and I think when everyone's doing it, you need to find what your angle is on it.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever really nailed that down. I think we had really good opinions and points of view, but by segment. I think every time someone had a segment, they're like, "This is something I want to write about," or "This is something I want to talk about." But we never framed it into like a bigger picture of, well, what's the show's take? Is it a millennial point of view? Is it a young person? Like what is it? Is it a comedian point? Like, I don't know. Like the fact that I'm like stuttering like this only fuels the point where it's like, what is it? Is it about New York? Is it about, what's the specific kind of hook a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that is what I'd want to explore a little bit more if I were to do other talk show things.
Totally. Yeah, I could see that. I miss the one show I miss is I miss VH1's That Metal Show.
Oh, I don't know that one.
That was a kind of like a panel talk show on VH1, and it came back a couple different times. It would be like heavy metal musicians and comedians that are known for liking heavy metal, like your Jim Brewers, Jim Florentines.
Oh,
and they would just talk about metal.
Yeah, to me that has a clear hook and gimmick, and it has a clear audience, and you know who's going to go watch that show.
Yeah, I feel like Paul and I could do like
you could totally do like
we
a
could
pop
do
punk.
a pop punk version of that. I think that would be really awesome.
Paul would be great for that. I mean, just having like a pop punk
talk show. Have you heard his band's EP?
Was it from years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have them all. They are. I have listened to them all. Granted, it was more to create a lot of our like backing tracks for Backdoor BBQ because
sure.
I don't have to pay royalties on Paul's music.
of course.
But yeah, no, I have. I mean, they were actual. It's like legit. Recordings. And stuff.
They were. They had good stuff. So I would love to do some music stuff with him, and I like that. And I'm gonna get my next thing into news. I'm always thinking of like, oh, what's my hook to get into news? Is
just need a character and a point of view and something you want to do, and we get it in. That's one of the more interesting parts of the show, because it's the one part where we get to kind of just see what happens, depending on who's the character. I've had characters literally just give me a little card that says, Brenda the Bachelorette planner, and I bring her on and just see how this goes and just try and add where I can. And then we've had ones where it's fully scripted. So that for me is always fun because I get to kind of use I have to like just be actively listening and kind of finding ways to like heighten the whole bit, which is really fun.
Yeah.
And I get to engage with the audience a lot, which is very, very interesting sometimes.
Yeah, and your joke writing is very solid. You got this setup, punch, twist thing going down quite well, I think.
Thank you. I've been working at it as best as I could and trying to write more. I think that's where I've seen the most success is giving myself the couple weeks to just write. I think gotta work on the delivery sometimes. Sometimes I go a little too fast and loose.
Oh yeah. Well, and there's just and I'm always just like, oh, I hope he's got something about that, like Trump stepping into North Korea, and I was just surprised they actually stepped. They didn't like have like someone to carry him.
They just like let him. He's just like, all right, I'll take a foot in. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and the next show's on a Friday. I think
it is on a Friday. We wanted to kind of keep it on the same date. We've always had a show on July 26th since our first one. So, as much as we usually do Thursdays, because if the 26th was on a Friday, we kind of decided it'd be good to keep that on the 3-year mark to the date.
Totally,
which would be really fun.
Absolutely. Well, dude, I appreciate that you've continued to want me involved in the show, and it's been great. And it's been great getting to collaborate on stuff, and I'm looking forward to what we do next.
Yeah, it should be really fun. We have a great cast and a great team, and every show is fun, exciting, and different. That's what I like most about how we've changed it. It was a small change, but it's really been a big difference for our audience and for ourselves, and has been a lot of fun. So kind of giving a different flavor each time, which would be really cool, and should be doing that again in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Sounds good, man. I'll make sure this is out before July 24th is the next show.
July 26th.
July 26th. It's in my calendar.
I hope you're going to be there.
Oh, I'll be there, man. All right. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, folks, that's our show for this week. Thank you for tuning in. If you're in the New York City area and you want to check out Mike's sketch group that I work with, Backdoor BBQ, our next show is at the People's Improv Theater, July 26th, Friday night. You can get your tickets at thepit-nyc.com. I'll have a link in the description. Thank you guys again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show and you want to help the show grow, help others find it, feel free to share it with a friend. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. You can leave ratings and reviews on those platforms. That helps the show grow and helps other people find it. You can follow me on Twitter at ComicWillCarey. If you want me to come do stand-up in your city, let me know, and I will get that figured out, because I like to travel, I like to do stand-up, and I want to come do it in your city and party. Thank you guys again for your continued listenership. I really appreciate it. And if you just want to say hi to me on Twitter, I appreciate that as well. So thank you guys again for listening, and I will see you next week between Awesome and Disaster. Take care, everybody.